Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about constrictive pericarditis. So in constrictive pericarditis, you will see that the pericardium is thickened. The pericardium is thickened and scarred, and it is often calcified. Pericardium is thickened, scarred and calcified. So what is happening here? Because of thickening of pericardium, scarring and calcification, the pericardial pressure is decreased in cardiac tamponade. It is decreased in cardiac tamponade. Right. Okay, sorry. This is constrictive pericarditis, right? Even here the pericardium is thickened and calcified, so pericardial pressure is decreased. Okay, so this decreased pericardial pressure here, because of thickening and scarring, there is decreased pericardial pressure, right? So what happens in systole? We will see. In systole, once there is beginning of ventricular systole, once there is beginning of ventricular systole, okay, the pericardium, there is decreased pericardial pressure. Okay, because of decreased pericardial pressure in ventricular systole, you will see though there is decrease in pericardial pressure, you will see venous return will occur. So as a result, there will be venous return occurs, and even the heart fills in systole. Okay, so as a result, you will see X descent. Okay, that is, it is almost similar to cardiac tamponade. Okay, whereas now what happens in diastole? In diastole, here also pericardial pressure decreases, but in this time, here the rigid thickened pericardium which is present, this will allow the heart to remain in relaxed state, allow the heart to remain relaxed. So because of this relaxed, now heart being relaxed, now this will allow some limited expansion of the heart. There is limited expansion of heart is present. So because of this limited expansion of the heart, this will result in early diastolic filling. So here there is early diastolic filling is occurring. So as a result, there is prominent Y descent is seen. Okay, so prominent Y descent, X descent and prominent Y descent are seen in constrictive pericarditis. Okay, now what else happens? Then in constrictive pericarditis, if we learn about the ventricular diastole, okay, ventricular diastole is divided in 3 phases. Okay, it has 3 phases. Ventricular diastole has 3 phases. First phase, second phase and third phase. Okay, first there is early dip in diastolic pressure occurs. Why is there early dip in diastolic pressure? This occurs due to isovolumetric relaxation of ventricles. there is early dip of diastolic pressure due to isovolumetric relaxation of ventricles. This is seen in normally also it is seen, but the difference is this early dip in diastolic pressure is actually prominent in constrictive pericarditis. There is early dip in diastolic pressure, number 1. Number 2, there is second phase, there is increased diastolic pressure. Because first there is relaxation of ventricles, after isovolumetric relaxation there is rapid filling phase, right? Because of the rapid filling phase, you will see presence of increased diastolic pressure. This is mainly due to rapid filling of the ventricle. This occurs due to rapid filling of ventricles. There is increased diastolic phase. This is followed by opening of AV valve. This is followed by opening of AV valve. If you see this phase, here in constrictive pericarditis there is more than normal increase in diastolic pressure, okay, because of excessive relaxation and thus excessive filling. Then we have third phase. Now in the third phase, which is also called as plateau phase, here the patient will have, so here in constrictive pericarditis there is rigid pericardium, because once the filling has started it will stop the rapid filling of ventricles. Because of rigid pericardium it will stop the rapid filling of ventricles. And thus this is seen as a plateau phase, and this is seen near the end of first 1/3 of the diastole. And after this there is no increase in ventricular diastolic pressure. And if you plot this, you will see something like this: a dip, elevation and plateau. This is dip, this is elevation, this is plateau. Okay, so this dip is mainly due to isovolumetric relaxation, elevation is due to the rapid filling of ventricles, plateau is when the rigid pericardium stops the rapid filling of ventricles. There is plateau phase. So this is about ventricular diastole in constrictive pericarditis. Then important thing, then due to the constrictive pericarditis, due to rigid pericardium, the cardiac filling is decreased and filling pressures are raised, and even venous pressures are also raised. In order to increase the filling, the venous pressures are raised. Now the clinical features of this mainly depends upon the raised venous pressure. Now this raised venous pressure will increase the jugular venous pressure, and here you will see presence of hepatomegaly is seen with marked ascites, and then you will see presence of peripheral edema is also seen. This hepatomegaly with marked ascites is the most common, actually it is most consistent finding. It is seen in almost all the patients of pericarditis, constrictive pericarditis. Then because of increases venous pressure with decreased filling, because of increased filling, but still there will be decreased filling than normal. Okay, so because there is decreased filling than normal, this will lead to decreased cardiac output. Because of decreased cardiac output, there will be fatigue. This will also lead to hypotension. And finally, because of hypotension, decreased BP, reflexly it causes reflex tachycardia. Okay, so these are the main clinical features. Now, one more important finding which is rare in acute pericarditis is if there is acute left ventricular failure which is resulting in acute pulmonary edema. Acute left ventricular failure causing acute pulmonary edema is actually rare in constrictive pericarditis. Then apical pulse is reduced in constrictive pericarditis, and this is called as Broad-Bent's sign. Here you will also see in constrictive pericarditis you will see abnormally rapid ventricular filling. You will see abnormally rapid ventricular filling is seen during first 1/3 of diastole, and after that the filling is completely stopped. First there is abnormally rapid filling in the first 1/3 of diastole. After that, rapid ventricular filling which should be there, that normally that is stopped abruptly due to rigid pericardium, and this stopping of ventricular filling abruptly will result in production of pericardial knock. What is this pericardial knock? This pericardial knock is actually an early diastolic sound which is heard along the left sternal border. It is heard along the left sternal border following S2. This is it is heard along the left sternal border following S2. This pericardial knock occurs before S3 and it has higher acoustic frequency than S3. It has higher acoustic frequency than S3. Then the next type of pericarditis which should also be known is about the chronic constrictive pericarditis. So what are the clinical features of chronic constrictive pericarditis? In chronic constrictive pericarditis, here because it is chronic, you will see decrease in ventricular and diastolic volume, and you will also see decrease in stroke volume, and you will see increase in end diastolic pressure is increased in both the ventricles. You will see increase in end diastolic pressure in both the ventricles is seen, and you will also see increase in mean pressure in atria. You will see increase in mean pressure in pulmonary veins and also in systemic veins, and you will see presence of congestive hepatomegaly. Okay, you will see presence of ascites, and also Kussmaul's sign is also positive in chronic constrictive pericarditis. Next, we have something called as hemorrhagic pericarditis. What are the causes of hemorrhagic pericarditis? This is hemorrhagic pericarditis is presence of blood in the pericardial cavity, and even that is hemorrhagic pericarditis. The causes are tuberculosis, malignant involvement of pericardial sac. If there is malignant involvement of pericardial sac, this results in hemorrhagic pericarditis. Bleeding diastasis, presence of bleeding diastasis, cardiac surgery, okay, and post myocardial infarction. If there is dissecting aneurysm of aorta, and uremic pericarditis. All these are the causes of hemorrhagic pericarditis. Now, what about the investigations? In the investigations, if you see ECG, in the ECG you will see non-specific changes are seen in the ECG. You will see low voltage flat T wave plus or minus atrial fibrillation is seen. Then on chest X-ray you might see presence of pericardial calcifications may be seen, or you can see effusion may be seen. And then if you do echocardiography or CT or MRI, you will see presence of pericardial thickening is seen. Actually, among all these tests, CT scan, among echocardiography, CT scan and MRI, CT scan is actually best test to demonstrate calcifications. CT scan is best test to demonstrate calcifications. And if you see the next, you can also do a cardiac catheterization is done. With the help of cardiac catheterization, you will see equalization of end diastolic chamber occurs. Equalization of end diastolic chamber pressures occurs in catheterization, which is called as square root sign. Okay. Now, what about the treatment? The treatment of this constrictive pericarditis is we can do medical treatment, and in the medical treatment we give diuretics, and then we can give salt restriction can be done. Then on surgical treatment, okay, if you see surgery, we can do pericardiectomy can be done. This pericardiectomy is done only if the patient is refractory to medical therapy. Only then we do pericardiectomy is done. If you see the prognosis is best with either idiopathic case or with infection. Prognosis is best, but it is worst in post-radiation case. It is worst in post-radiation case with death resulting from heart failure. With death resulting from heart failure if there is worst prognosis. So this is about constrictive pericarditis. Thank you for watching.